Hi, Governor Bush. Thank you for being here. I'm John Paul Farmer from Microsoft, and as you might expect, my question is on technology. Some recent federal initiatives like the U.S. Digital Service and the Presidential Innovation Fellows have been tapping into some of the most creative folks around the country to solve problems. And the State Department and Defense have started to get on board recently. What do you see as the role of technology in advancing American foreign policy, making American government more effective and efficient?
Well, first of all, I read a lengthy article about the effort that the president has led. He's actually gone to recruit people in Silicon Valley, and I found it really interesting and fascinating and encouraging, but I haven't seen the results. Maybe the article was old and it hasn't played out. I hope it does, because we are, as I said, our government operates as though it's 1975. And the world we're in is dramatically different. And one way to reduce costs is to embrace technology across the board. Think about the Department of Veterans Affairs. I hope the team is in there, the nerds are in there destroying the old systems, because you cannot, most places, most healthcare outlets right now, you can go online and you can get an appointment. And you can get it, bam, like that. And it creates productivity gains for the providers. It saves a ton of money. It provides a convenient way of receiving the health care that you need. It's a paper-driven system in the Department of Veterans Affairs, the largest healthcare system in the world. They have 330,000 people working there. They have career civil service protections. 3 people have been fired by the most atrocious act I can imagine. $140 million of bonuses, part of which went to reduce the waiting list to get care, to get your assessment or to actually get care. They reduced the waiting list by not giving people care, just reduced the waiting list, and they got bonused. 3 people have been fired. That's a system that is designed for self-protection, and technology can tear down those barriers and allow for the customer, in this case the vet, to be able to be empowered to make decisions for themselves. And I think that's the way you do this across the board. You shift power to people and you harness technology for them to be able to be informed consumers. So if it's, we have 40, I'll give you an example. I'm sorry, this is domestic policy again, but we have 44 programs for early childhood education. We spend $22 billion a year from the federal government alone. That doesn't count the state monies or private monies that go to early childhood education. 44 separate programs, all protected, all having bureaucracies, all paper-driven, all with forms, all with headaches. Just imagine what that looks like to try to access this stuff. Why not block grant that to states and say, you can voucherize this? I would trust a mom living in poverty to love their child with their heart and soul a lot more than some nameless, faceless bureaucrat in one of those 44 programs in Washington, D.C. Because that bureaucrat also has to have a corresponding bureaucrat at a local or state government to fill out the forms to comply with all of this. This is perpetuating a lack of productivity that is dangerous now. We don't have the luxury to operate with an ineffective government anymore. So the idea of harnessing technology as you're describing it, I think, is the key to break down these barriers for us to be a lot more productive.
There's iMessaging, as you know, is now encrypted in a way that government can't get into, even with a court order. And there are government officials like Cyrus Vance here who thinks Apple should have a backdoor so that they could get in. Yeah. What do you think about that?
That's a difficult question. It was asked at the debate. It was a pretty substantial question, actually, in the debate. I get kudos for Cavuto for asking it. Better than fantasy football. That was a great question. But this question is an important one, because if we go overboard on this, it's legitimate to make that claim that we should, when there's a national security threat, to have the ability to go through the back door and determine if that threat is real. But you could also end up shifting people's platforms overseas. You could end up with non-compliant technological entities that aren't U.S.-based that would hurt our economy and also challenge us and make it less possible for us to create a more secure America. So I think first of all, the trust has to be rebuilt. The Snowden case was just an unmitigated disaster. For anybody to think that this guy's a patriot when he disclosed sources and methods and jeopardized incredible patriots and heroes that don't get a pat on the back because they can't. They're not available for a pat on the back. We have jeopardized our national security by these disclosures. And it has created a lack of trust with our European allies and with the technology companies that now feel pressure overseas as they try to continue to do business. So this mess has to start with the president trying to rebuild trust with these large technology companies that are U.S. based, and then do the same as it relates to our allies. But it's not going to be easy. You can't just say, well, we're going to pass a law and require this, because we actually may have a worse outcome if we do that, if we're not careful. Mm-hmm.